good morning to you on this Monday morning. It's April 4th, 2022. I'm Andy Johnson. Welcome to it. This is how we're going to start the week here at WESN. This is AM Prime. With lots to get through in the next hour and a half. We'll tell you what's that's happening. We'll be talking in the second hour of the program with a lady named Rebecca Ali Govaya, and she's her organization, the Elpis Center. They wrote a piece which was carried in one of the newspapers last week. The headline was "Protect the Health and Development of Caribbean Children." And she was talking about the early exposure to sexual activity by young people and what that does to them later in life. We'll get to that as we cross the 7 o'clock hour. But in this hour, we're going to have we have to move quickly. We're talking with the former Minister of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries, who we spoke with a couple of weeks ago, and he decided he didn't have the stomach to continue in the government. He said he was missing his wife and children who live in Canada, and he wanted to return to them and to continue his life there. But we saw in the paper on the weekend, well, a stunner to a lot of people, that he has agreed to stay in Trinidad and Tobago or to divide his time between there and here. He's taken up a position, a job in a position to be created by the Prime Minister. It's called the Single Point Land Agency, to deal with the plethora of matters having to do with wrongful possession of state land in the country. He's agreed to talk with us on that. We're talking also with Attorney Farid Ali. Last Friday, we saw the news which said that the DPP had dropped one of the charges for misbehavior in public office against former Minister Marlene McDonald. Well, how does that work? The whole question of what constitutes misbehavior in public office. Mr. Ali will talk with us in moments from now. But right now, we're focusing on that story that broke in the Sunday Express yesterday. The headline was called Farid rocks back, not Farid, I'm sorry, but the minister, Clarence, rocks back on that issue about wanting to go away and be with his family. So he's going to take this job. So to get a sense of how that was playing in different parts of the country, we asked him, a friend and colleague here, also somebody in the media in a big way, former P&M local government councillor and former consular general to Trinidad and Tobago in Miami some years ago, Harvey Boris, and he's agreed to talk with us on this. Good morning, sir.
Pleasant good morning to you.
Well, good to see you.
Pleasant good morning to you, Andy. Pleasant morning, and thank you for inviting me on the program this morning.
All right, so we have to be busy. So tell us, what was your reaction? What was the reaction you heard from people in your circles seeing that headline in the paper yesterday?
Well, I must say it caught me with some bit. It was somewhat surprising, because one is aware of the statements that were made in respect to the former minister returning to his family, and the fact that one heard that his family may have already proceeded to another destination. So it caught me with some level of surprise, as the case may be, and of course. Like most of us, the one thing you learn is to learn to expect the unexpected.
So you think that was unexpected for a lot of people?
Well, based on what I was hearing, and based on one or two of my colleagues I spoke to, that was not in the cards. As you know, I am at this point in time, I'm still a temporary government senator. So I am in chat and in conversation with a few of my colleagues, and I did not hear anything of that nature. But of course, the Prime Minister, in his wisdom, probably saw the need to have the expertise or the experience or the involvement, as the former minister have already, as he said, 50 matters in the court where he was looking at illegal situation. And as you're also aware, this week I think 2 persons were from the ministry was charged in connection with fraudulent activities, allegedly so. So it is possibly based on that situation and the fact that you have a number of matters where the minister is directly involved as a witness, which is to me the first time in history I've heard something of that nature. To me, it shows the level of commitment from the minister in terms of getting things done, and he actually took the bull by the horn, so to speak, in actually trying to get some of these matters resolved. So probably the Prime Minister, in his wisdom, felt that it was incumbent on him or important to ensure that the minister or the former minister would be part of some aspect of governance where he can continue that involvement to remove and to bring to an end some of the illegal activity where land situation is concerned. As you know, it is very, very prevalent in our country.
Right, and he's agreed to talk with us as well. And when I sent him a note yesterday saying, well, I'm primarily concerned with the sort of what you call the human nature of this. How do you sell this to your wife and children? They're expecting you to come back, and now you take this job that will cause you to remain here. So he will talk with us about that. But what is your sense then of the kind of selling you would have had to have done to tell them, well, look, particularly his wife, well, look, I have to change my mind.
Well, I would imagine from a family point of view, he would have had to convince his wife and the importance and putting country first. As you know, I have started the team over 30 years now. I love my country.
Yes.
And sometimes in the service of country, you sometimes even have to put your country over your family directly to some extent in terms of ensuring that the country is on a good footing. And therefore, he may have convinced his family. I mean, I know his family, his wife, and they from years ago in Barataria, and it would then seem to be logical that he would have had a long chat with his wife and convinced her, and also probably the children that he, based on what he's doing now, he may even have more flexibility in traveling abroad, or they may have decided to return to Trinidad. I'm not sure what the exact how they would have arranged it, but I'm sure something was done, and he is the kind of person I believe would have that kind of conversation with his wife and his family.
All right, so you're saying in your circles, people aren't so negative or suspect about it. Pretty cynical, because I'm looking at some of the responses to it. That was the big question in the Express this morning, for instance. Do you support Clarence Rambarat's return to the government? And a lot of people are cynical about it, saying, well, what do you expect? Somebody said, return, he never left. Another person said, I thought he said his family is more important and is his first priority. Another person said, don't trust them. Another person said, on a point of principle, no.
Well, again, you will have diverse opinions coming from members of the public in respect to what would have caused his decision. But I will one think that it was a question of putting country first and seeing that he is already involved in a number of matters. Remember, he's involved in 50 matters. Should he depart? The question I would ask myself, if he depart, would those 50 matters fall? Said I'm not sure if he's a prime witness or he is the only witness in these matters. And as such, I think it's important to have, because I actually thought about that when I heard when I heard of his removal from the cabinet and the fact that he was looking to migrate with his family. So I actually thought about that. So on that basis, I would have no qualms in him staying back. It could be for a period of time, as the case may be. But I'm glad that he had the opportunity. Remember, he said it was his childhood dream to serve in government, as the case may be. Just like I have a childhood dream to bring goodwill to the nation, and that's why we open Center for Justice. So it's on that basis. I think he would be operating and putting that desire to serve his country above everything else.
Yeah, in fact, you see, you're not sure what kind of witness is. He's a principal witness in these 50 matters. And also there's this issue that I've decided to pursue. He said that because of what he was seeing and the action he took, for 3 senior persons in the ministry, whether it's in the Land Settlement Agency or elsewhere, the what you call it, the Commissioner of State Lands, I think that more properly. 3 people were suspended, and he said that matter went to the Service Commission, the Director of Personnel Administration, and so on. And to his surprise, those people were exonerated without any reference to him whatsoever as the principal witness. So that is an issue, I think, that is still there for prosecution, for understanding as to what happened. So there's a lot that he was going to leave on his plate. So that, so you're saying the discussions in your groups, nobody is too cynical or negative about it?
No. There isn't that thing, because one thing people found that he was a committed person in respect to the job that he was doing. There was always this concern, though, that would he have done enough in terms of getting the African community involved in land and return to land, as the case may be, as you know, on some of slavery. and as you understand, with the number of things that's taken place in the country, and the need to get Africans back to land. You're looking at the decade for people of African origin. Look at the reparation situation, and look at the fact that African has been denied. So he being those of us express, he being of Indian background, there was that concern along a number of the African persons. Would he have that concern or that compassion, that understanding? And I have said to many persons, if you understand, looking at his wife and the fact that how he has been, the first I met Clarence, I was a director of Eastern Credit Union, and he came and he did a presentation, and I thought it was the best presentation I've heard over the years thus far at our presentations in respect to putting things together and getting things organized. So I recognize that he has the ability to pull things together, to get things organized, and I'm clear in my mind that if he stays on, it would be a real fighter getting things organized. But just I believe that one of his primary concern is to remove corruption or in respect to high office, and that is something we have not been able to do where that's concerned. And land corruption is really rampant in this nation, and you need to have that focus. Somebody who is so focused to take up that challenge as given to him by the Honorable Prime Minister.
All right, Harvey Boris, thank you very much for talking with us on this.
It was my privilege being here with you, Andy. Wish you success in the program. And of course, we wish you and Tobago all the best. Remember, whatever you do in life, live to love and love to live. And, make the rest of your life the best of your life. And I will end by saying, Andy, I love my country.
Thank you very much, my friend.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you again.
All right, well, we're going to take a break. The minister should be there waiting to come on. Let's just tell you some of what else is said in the responses to this question in the Express this morning. Do you support Clarence Rambarat's return to the government? And one person is saying, well, politics aside, he's a very qualified individual who has a lot to bring to this job. On merit alone, he's a good selection on this. Another response is that them UNC supporters thought they could have used Clarence to play politics, so they vex now he get higher back in banning them. Blessings, Minister Rambarat, and there's more that we will get to in a moment. Stay with us.
We dare you to dream, to see beyond the struggle, to envision the possibilities, to live life with unlimited vision. Ferrera Optical supports you with complete eyewear starting at only $795. Let's make those dreams a reality. So book your visit via 227-7000, WhatsApp message 278-2878, or at FerreraOptical.com today. We dare you to keep going. Ferrera Optical says, don't limit your vision.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best.
I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in-depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the content capital.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through. Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Burning questions, urgent topics. Welcome back to One on One. the show where we tackle the most current and pertinent subjects that are affecting all citizens, where we ask the hard questions and have in-depth conversations. What separates One-on-One from other talk shows is that the conversation stems from a younger perspective on topics that affect the fabric of our society. One-on-One, Wednesdays at 10 a.m. on WESN Content Capital.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit? Yes. What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive. It is not rehabilitative.
We, the police officers, we are professional, and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole. It's for all of us in public.
If you live with someone who's tested positive for COVID-19 and has to self-isolate at home, take care of them from a distance and reduce their movement around the house. Give them space, a designated space, and open those windows. If you have to be in contact, mask up, both of you. If you work, stay home from work and don't go out. Not even to the grocery or pharmacy. And remember, no visitors allowed. Limit the contact to limit the spread.
The Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society. Mission-based, people-focused, community-driven.
Welcome back. We remind you, stay with us. Up ahead in this hour, the former Minister of Agriculture, Lands and Fisheries, Clarence Rambarath, who has decided to take another job as to head a new agency, an agency in the making. It has to do with what we are told, a single point land issue, trying to deal with what is said to be endemic corruption in the operations of the holders of state lands in the country. So we'll get to him moments from now. But right now, in the Zoom with us, our friend Attorney Fareed Ali. There was a story that broke on Friday that the DPP had decided to drop the charge of, and I'm just saying it how it came across to me and a lot of people, the charge of misbehavior in public office against former government Minister Marlene McDonald. People wanted to know, well, what is that? So if that charge is dropped, then everything else collapses. It turns out that it was one of the charges of misbehavior in public office, and some people have a difficulty with understanding that, because misbehavior in public office, to the normal understanding, has to do with some things that you do, and if you drop that charge, then everything else collapses under that. But that's not the case. There were several of these charges of misbehavior in public office, given what she was charged with, or some forms of corruption. To help us unravel this, Mr. Ali has agreed to talk with us. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Johnson. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, and thanks for coming on, because when we spoke on Friday, you said that in the beginning, at least going on the headline alone, you thought that you know the whole matter was collapsed, and you had to read carefully to see that it was one of several charges of misbehavior in public office. Talk with us about that. Explain the nuances in there, if you like.
Well, let us look at it from this point of view. Closer examination of the charges. When Ms. McDonald was charged, it amounted to 4 charges of misbehavior in public office, 1 charge of money laundering, and 2 charges of conspiracy to defraud. When I first glanced the headline on Friday, the first thing that would have occurred to me or played on my mind is whether we're looking at a complete discharge in relation to the misbehavior in public office. However, in paying a bit closer attention, we are seeing that it's just one issue. That issue being, and it was carried in the editorial, that as Minister of Community Development in April of 2010, it was deemed that a $2.3 million contract was granted in that Meccano Quarrylands Laventille area. That has since been discontinued. The DPP has the power under Section 90, without even offering an explanation, without the need to offer an explanation, to discontinue a charge against anyone that it has embarked on a prosecution against. The public will not get the benefit of knowing what was the reasoning behind dropping that charge. Now, let's bear in mind that there were 22 witnesses that the prosecution declared would be offering evidence against Ms. McDonald. I'm not going to speculate this morning and say that there is an issue with the witnesses or there are any issues that may be arising, because we cannot see. And when I say we cannot see, the very fact that the DPP has chosen to discontinue under Section 90 gives it the latitude to not have to explain itself. So what it means to say it's 1 from 4 leaves 3, and we are left with 3 charges of misbehavior in public office, 2 charges of conspiracy to defraud, and 1 for money laundering.
All right, so let's understand it, or try and understand it from this way. So that each of the charges of you say money laundering and what's the other one? Fraud?
Yes, 3 for misbehavior in public office, 2 charges for conspiracy to defraud, and 1 for money laundering. Right. Let us make sense of the conspiracy to defraud.
Right.
For conspiracy in law involves persons coming together and they having the agreement to fraudulently and deceitfully embark on activity that amounts to a criminal offense. So, given the fact that there are other persons involved, meaning other persons charged, Mr. Michael Carew, Edgar Zephyrin, Mr. McEathery, and Wayne Anthony, they each carry, barring Mr. Wayne Anthony, the others are also charged for conspiracy to defraud. So the common sense approach is that in some way, Carew, Zephyrin, and Ms. McDonald may have agreed on a certain course of action in the prosecution's eye that would have led to a charge for conspiracy to defraud to be laid against them. Also, regard to the misbehavior in public office, that is a common law charge, right? A common law charge is where there isn't any legislation that the individual was charged under. It's a charge that is laid as it speaks to the office that one's hold. So, in terms of misbehaving in public office, Ms. McDonald was a public officer at the time the charge was laid, and and she owed a duty of care to the citizenry of this country, and a duty of care as a result of holding such a public office. And that duty involved that she simply cannot act in a way that would injure the public interest. And it is alleged that she fraudulently and deceitfully engaged in activity that compromised the public interest and brought injury to the public interest. So in looking at the charge, and this is where I'm sort of pointing you to.
Yes.
It's not seeing that one charge of misbehaving in public office was dropped by the DPP's office, and that points to the awarding of a contract in Meccano Quarry Lands. It doesn't mean to say that the others would automatically fall, because we're remaining with 3 additional charges of misbehavior in public office. It means similar activity may have been embarked upon. If we were to examine that area where Mr. Carew, he had a foundation that he was a director of, the Calabar Foundation, and also Mr. Zephyrin was also a director in that foundation. The allegation is that funds were siphoned, or funds were passed into that foundation or under the auspices of the foundation. And she used her office in order to accommodate the funding going to that particular organization. Now, Mr. Carew, it is said that he's the partner of Ms. McDonald. So, in other words, money going into that foundation, she ought to have declared that she has some sort of interest by way of it's a family relation. Mr. Carew is a family-related individual, somebody that is her partner. Public funds can't go into such a place without her declaring that she has an interest or she has a partner or family member who is a director in that organization.
All right, and she was more or less a patron of that foundation, correct? She was associated with the foundation in and of itself and on her own as well, not so?
Well, yes. The foundation is the directorship in the foundation. One of the directors is connected to her.
All right.
Mr. Michael Carew is her life partner, and there is a connection between him and her by way of a relationship. You cannot be holding, or one cannot be holding a public office and not declare that your partner, who is a director in an organization, and you're using your office, your public office, in order to siphon money to a foundation in which he is the director. In other words, if money is going to go into an organization, you ought to declare your interest. You ought to declare that someone that you know is a director in that organization. Now, let us put that into context, Mr. Johnson. We have to bear in mind that, and I was reading recently, that Trinidad and Tobago, we are ranked and when we examine the Corruption Perception Index, we were ranked in 2021 number 40, and in 2022 we improved our rank to 41. The larger number being that we've improved our position. We are amongst 180 countries that were listed. We were listed as one of the more corrupt countries in the world.
Yeah, and we went up one notch.
We've since changed that position and changed our position in terms of if we were to look at the legislation that we passed in 2020, legislation such as the Gambling, Gaming and Betting Control Act 2021. We looked at the Revenue Authority Act 2021. We looked at the Representation of the People Act 2020. The Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Property Act 2020. We have passed legislation within the past year to 18 months, which puts us in a position where we could monitor how monies are procured and how monies are flowing from one organization to the next, or how public officers can act in relation to public funds.
All right.
Bear in mind that this issue arising with Ms. McDonald stemmed way back in 2007, where the Integrity Commission and the police were investigating certain activities that she is alleged to have engaged in, as way back as when under the Patrick Manning administration. Now, when those activities were brought under the watchful eyes of the Integrity Commission and the police, she was cleared in 2013. By the time the Rowley administration came into power, this government came into power in September of 2015. Ms. McDonald was cleared in 2013, some 2 years before. So she assumed public office again. By the time February of 2016 came, fresh information, fresh evidence came to the forefront, and it was said that she was now under investigation once more. Mr. Rowley, the Prime Minister, removed her in February 2016 from holding that public administration post that she was given in 2015 September. The position was that by 2017, 16 months later in August, the Integrity Commission had not concluded in relation to her position. They had not made a ruling and said, well, we have solid evidence against her. They had dropped some of the charges in October 2016 in terms of the investigation, but the police continued the investigation from August 2017 moving forward. So we're looking at August 2017 to when the charges were laid in August 2019. At that point, when the charges were laid, she was relieved of her position of Deputy Leader of the People's National Movement and relieved of the position of Minister of Public Administration.
Yes.
So the Prime Minister is simply saying that he had issues with the Integrity Commission, and he even went so far to say that the Integrity Commission at one point in time had him under investigation, and he had questions of their integrity. whether they were politically motivated.
All right, so here, so the charge that found itself attached to that particular accusation of misbehavior in public office, that charge remains, or the charge was vacated, whereupon she had to be released of this particular accusation of misbehavior in public office. Is that it? But with the other charges remaining, and they also carry this attachment of misbehavior in public office. Is that a way to understand it?
That is exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying that the charge that was dropped in terms of misbehavior in public office, it's a single charge. There were different counts of misbehavior in public office. It's not a general misbehavior in public office. They're saying that there were specific instances. So there were one particular instance, they dropped that in relation to the contract also offered in terms of the $2.3 million contract at Meccano Quarrylands. That particular aspect, that has been dropped.
Right.
But the other aspects, which is the 3 for misbehavior in public office, as it pertains to monies that would pass to the Caliber Foundation, as it relates to an HDC house that was passed to Mr. Michael Carew, all these allegations remain.
Right, so every
behavior, it touches and concerns the house that was passed to Mr. Carew, as it touches and concerns the monies that were siphoned to the Caliber Foundation, those remain.
Right, so every single accusation
that she used the office in order to siphon money to that organization, and also used the office in order to get a house for Mr. Michael Carew.
Right, so every single accusation carries with it individually an accusation of misbehavior in public office. It's not as though you commit 10 offenses and then there's that single misbehavior in public office put on top of that. So every single one of the infractions carries a separate accusation of misbehavior in public office, right?
Exactly. Right. Exactly so. Each instance carries a separate allegation of misbehavior in public office. And it's only one that the DPP has chosen to discontinue. The others, as it relates to the siphoning of the money to the Caliber Foundation, and the other as it relates to the using her public office in order to get a house for Mr. Michael Carew, that stands.
All right, my friend. Thank you very much for talking with us and helping us come through the legal thicket there, Fareed Ali. Thank you very much.
I'm happy to assist. Thank you.
All right, so we will take a break. And when we come back, well, former minister and now incoming head of this organization called the Single Point Land Use Agency in Trinidad and Tobago, Mr. Clarence Rambarat. Stay with us. The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through. Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix-It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. Having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix-It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andre. Right. Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is it no pressure on Nicholas Paul?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the right time.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Welcome back. Well, let me begin by saying how grateful we are that he's agreed to talk with us in the time available. And this morning, Mr. Clarence Rambarat, who left the cabinet just in the last reshuffle as Minister of Agriculture, Lands and Fisheries, and he explained why he was doing that. Well, within a week, he's decided to change his mind. So he's now going to take up this position in this new agency called the Single-Use Land Agency for Trinidad and Tobago. He's agreed to become the CEO of that. He's explaining to us why. My only question when I reached out to him yesterday was, how did you sell this at home? Good morning. Good to see you.
Good morning, Andy, and good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. And I have to start off by clarifying. I read the story yesterday, and I got a lot of messages, and my wife also got a lot of messages. And I want to say that maybe in the absence of information or the way it was communicated, however this story got to the journalists, it was not well described. So I would explain to you, and it is not a CEO's position, and it's not a position in a land authority at all. When I resigned, I made it clear that it was because I wanted to find a better balance between work and family. And it had to do with the fact that before COVID, but during the COVID period, I was away apart from my family for 19 months because of the closure of the borders and the quarantine requirements for entry into Canada and re-entry into Trinidad and Tobago. It meant that if I had obtained a dispensation to enter Canada, I would have 2 weeks of quarantine on entry and 2 weeks of quarantine on return. And it really would have been, in a sense, torture. So for 19 months we were apart, and we've made the decision that whatever I do going forward, it should really strike a balance. It's not unusual for me to be working away from home. I've done that in my career. My wife has also done that in her career. And it was to find that right balance, especially in the context of our third child, our 16-year-old daughter, preparing to go off to university in another 18 months, and the need for. With that, I also said that I was quite prepared to work if called upon in Trinidad and Tobago and elsewhere. Professional work, technical work, particularly work that would support the new ministers in that particular ministry or elsewhere, and work that really brings to a closure work that I had started. So maybe 2.5 years ago, when the key thing, I'm just speaking on state land now, the key issue is not just in the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries, but also the spread of responsibility for state land is across the Land Settlement Agency. You have thousands and thousands of land files in that agency. You have the HDC itself, which in many cases depends on state land for its development of housing. And in many cases, lands which have been developed were not vested fully in HDC, and that has delayed the grant of the ability to access mortgages and the grant of title to those persons who have acquired properties. And then you have legacy issue. You have PSAL, which transferred some land in support of the land distribution that is proposed to former Petrotrin workers. You have legacy issues in various companies that are no longer functional, but still have some measure of control over land assets. And you have all those other state agencies, statutory authorities that hold the state land, and their issues over the management, the administration of it. Plipdeco is also in the mix. Plipdeco is a publicly listed company in which the state is a majority shareholder. And again, there are matters relating to land, including additional land that needed to be addressed. So to deal with that, I went to Cabinet and asked for the appointment of what is called a single point of authority committee, chaired by Jerry Hospitalis and made up of all the different agencies. And the work of that committee was to determine how do we have the ability to know what each other is doing? How do we have the ability to manage consistently across the board and share information? And that is in the context of digital transformation. The single point of authority is really a convergence point by which all the agencies, including the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries, can access information, share information, and also manage the land assets. That committee reported to the cabinet in August. In 2021, I can't remember the exact dates, but they reported. I submitted updates. I submitted a very recent update, and the committee made several recommendations, but the main recommendation was the creation of the appropriate IT backbone, which will allow the agencies to work off a common IT platform. And that was work that we had been doing since 2015, anyway in the ministry in terms of our operation. And we are at a stage now in the ministry where we are selecting a software provider to take the work forward in terms of the convergence of what we do from paper and manual to electronic. And that is where that project is. So the Land Management Authority is a separate discussion. No decision has been taken on that. It has been on the cards for a while. I myself placed on the PSIP in the ministry an allocation of $500,000 if it comes to that, to explore the creation of the Land Management Authority. But I took the position when I was minister that we should not be creating a new entity without cleaning up what we already have, and without having that connectivity with all the agencies, and without having convergence on a single electronic or digital platform. So the Land Management Authority is not on the cards right now. What we have is this work of the single point authority committee. There is no CEO, there is no general manager. It's just a lot of work to do. And the discussions I've had with the Prime Minister in terms of the transition period is that I would, his consideration is to have me continue that work in terms of the digital transformation in particular, from paper and manual to electronic. I'm midway in that work. And with that comes a series of other things that have to be done. For example, the changes will require change management within the ministry. iGov is on the verge of going out for a change management specialist when you're dealing with changes in processes and in some cases some retraining required. A change management specialist manages that. And there are other things that are going on alongside that, including the hardware, which we've been procuring and upgrading hardware since 2015. We have other things to do in terms of hardware and software. So those things, and also providing technical advice to the new minister, technical advice to the Prime Minister on matters relating to the management of state land, including the Caroni legacy issue, which is the 2-acre distribution, the residential distribution, and the Caroni assets, which since 2004, when I was last involved in the sugar industry, there have been some bad things that have happened with assets, some mismanagement, some assets may be in the wrong hands, and that is, we're talking about billions of dollars worth of assets, not only in Caroni but across the state landscape, and some of them are in danger, some of them may be lost, and some of it, as have been reported in the paper, the media, some of them are subject to fraud investigations.
All right. So
when you saw, I'm not departing from what I've said.
Right.
From the outset, I said that it is to strike the right balance. Whatever is offered to me or whatever is asked of me, the key thing is that it is work that I should be able to perform wherever I am physically. It is not work that requires me on a day-to-day basis to attend Parliament or to attend to Parliament cabinet business, or it is work that is technical work, advisory work that allows me to operate virtually, and I think that helps in the transition. as the new minister come on board and as we move towards a complete digital solution in terms of the administration and management of state land assets.
All right, so when you saw the headline in the Express yesterday, Clarence rocks back, what was your immediate response?
Well, I think it's a takeoff from I think it's today is Monday, so you'll also see a Facebook post today ending with "It's Monday Rock." So, and it's been my tradition, as I don't know if I told you that before, but when from years ago, when I was in private practice and I didn't have a family as yet, and Sunday afternoon was a day when I went into the office and got all organized for the terrors of Monday morning court. I was a young new lawyer, and you get a lot of buff in court for not being well organized, and I had a practice of going in on Sunday. So Monday morning, when most people were sad and all of that, I was full of energy. And I would meet people in the elevator, or I'll meet people, looking down, and I would say to them, get over it. It's Monday Rock. So in other words, get over it. It's life. And that has been my Monday tagline for a number of years, and I used it on my Facebook posts. And I think on the Wednesday, when my resignation was announced, I used it. Some people felt that I was throwing shade. It was nothing like that. That has been my standard line, and I guess the Express made use of it.
All right. So what you're saying here is that you didn't have to go on bended knees to the lady and the children for any.
Well, I am a happily married man, and that's because I'm always on bended knees. My wife has already sent me a message this morning, and no, I have a very healthy marriage and friendship with my wife Camille, and a long relationship and mutual respect for each other. She's a professional like I am, and she's always concerned about me, particularly overextending myself, and it is I could say to all couples that it is very challenging when you have to spend time apart. It is very, very challenging, and I love Trinidad and Tobago. I love the work that I was doing. I love the work that I do. I remain committed to the country and to the region. So it's really to strike that balance. I'm not taking up a CEO position. I've been there at a very young stage of my career. I was involved in Caroni and perhaps the most significant, and I would also say now the most troublesome, voluntary separation and retraining of workers and all of that has ever been executed. And on the weekend I was being asked some questions by a group in terms of upskilling and retraining people in Trinidad and Tobago. And I use the Caroni as an example, because in 2003 when we did the VSEP, there was the economy was very buoyant. The money was available, and at that time, a lot of workers were able to transition into the energy sector and into really, really good jobs on account of the retraining. And one in particular, the 54-inch Cross Island pipeline was being installed in support of the gas sector. And there was a significant shortage of welders, and we were able to take some of the Caroni workshop facilities, upgrade them at not a lot of money, upgrade them into welding training stations, and turn out maybe more than 100 Forge coded welders who to this day find it easy to get work in Trinidad and in other parts of the world. So it was in the context of maybe a program like that in the country to upgrade and upskill young persons, even university graduates, to maybe help them go into areas that are in demand, and it requires some level of retraining and upskilling. And I myself am an example of it. I qualified, I was admitted to the bar at age 24. And over the years, I've been able to work in private practice as in-house counsel in a management position, in a CEO position. And then over the years, I've been trained in occupational safety and health in several areas, which have allowed me to keep up with the demands of the market. And I think it is a conversation that we should be having with our young people who are in a job market that is very challenging, but there are opportunities available in the region and elsewhere, and we should be retraining them for those opportunities.
Yeah, I think the first time we met, you were CEO of the then sugar manufacturing company, right?
Yes, in another transition arrangement, in order to get the Eugene St. Madeleine factory started for the 2004 crop, because with the shutdown of Caroni on August 1st, 2003, it meant that the traditional work that would have been done to get the factory ready for the new crop in December of that year required some innovation, putting together a team, getting a contractor in place, using workers from the company, but now in a new arrangement to operate. And it was excellent work by the technical team. I learned what I did not know at the time. I completed my education in sugar in getting the factory up, and it is in that transition period that the opportunity was offered to me to go to the CRNM, the Caribbean Regional Negotiating Machinery, in the context of what was happening with the EU's negotiation with the ACP countries, the transition out of sugar, and in the context of Trinidad and Tobago bidding to host the Free Trade of the Americas, and the government having the view that I may be able to play a part in the Free Trade of the Americas. Right. That was not successful, and I ended up in the local health sector.
All right, we want to thank you.
Projects.
All right, we want to thank you very much for agreeing to talk with us in this. And so the bottom line is that there's not the level of intrigue as people think there is in this.
No, absolutely not. I mean, in fairness to the journalists, in the absence of, it might have been a misunderstanding of the information. And it is not a CEO position. It is not a position in a land management authority. It is the work that has started and is underway, and it is also not a position that involves, if there is a fraud or wrongdoing in the system, there is a new line minister with specific responsibility for land, and if that minister requires some technical advice, I am in a position to do that. Assuming we reach agreement, because the Prime Minister is quoted in the article as saying it's something that would be considered by cabinet, and that is what it is. But I'm not taking up a 8 to 4 job in Trinidad and Tobago.
All right, but what he said is that you probably the only person who could do what is required to be done with this job. But we got to leave it there. Thank you very much for talking with us. All right, we head to the news. On the other side of that, we're talking with a lady who represents an organization who says that children are in jeopardy of being led astray with early sexual activity, those things and more. We'll share the numbers with you also when we come back with where we are with COVID-19 on this day. Stay with us. This is AM Prime on this Monday morning.
Seven is out. All day is in. WESN News on the hour.
Every day, we communicate through stories. Stories of ourselves, our challenges, our goals, our experiences, and our aspirations. Storytelling is an art that we have mastered. WESN Film Studios comprises a collaborative team of experts with extensive industry experience locally, regionally, and internationally. The ability of your business to successfully communicate with your preferred audience depends on the strength of the stories you tell. Your vision should be communicated in a high-quality, professional, and creative way. From concept to post-production, advertising to film, multi-camera productions, live events, streaming, and virtual conferencing, we are WESN Film Studio. Let your own unique voice be heard and your vision realized. Call us today at 628-5835 for your next production.
In this season, we talk more about health, wellness, and everything in between. I am so excited to share with you everything about health and wellness so that you can design the life that you've always dreamed of. Join me here on What's Up Doc.
What's Up Doc? Tuesdays and Thursdays here on WESN, Content Capital.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
The continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andy.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is it no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
A reminder from WESN. We urge you to protect yourself and others from the spread of COVID-19. Stay safe by taking some simple precautions. Clean your hands often. Use soap and water or an alcohol-based hand rub. Maintain a safe distance from anyone who is coughing or sneezing. Wear a mask. Don't touch your eyes, nose or mouth. Cover your nose and mouth with your bent elbow or a tissue when you cough or sneeze. Stay at home. If you have a fever, cough and difficulty breathing, seek medical attention. Following the above can help us all to help each other.
All right, welcome back. Welcome back to the program. Up ahead, Ms. We talked to this lady in a moment concerning this organization called the ELPIS Center, Rebecca Ali Govea. We'll get to that in a moment, but let's just take a look at what the numbers are telling us this morning. COVID-19 over the weekend, the latest compilations and tabulations of what the figures are. So 128,244, that's the total recovered patients, 6,650, the total active positive cases, the death toll thus far, 3,761, 230, the new positive cases reported in the last 24 hours, 138,655. That's the total positive cases since we began the counting on March 12, 2020 to yesterday, and 162, that's the number of persons in hospital across the system, what they call a parallel health system in Trinidad and Tobago. That was April 3rd, 2022, which was yesterday. Well, all right, so here's this headline that was taken from The Guardian a couple of weeks ago. Protect the health and development of Caribbean children. And under it is an organization, the ELPIS Center. And it's talking about early activity sexually for children in Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean. And they have some concerns about that. And so we're talking about that this morning with this lady. Good morning, Ms. Govea, Ms. Ali Govea. I think you have to...
From phone, yeah.
All right, go ahead. Yes. Rebecca Ali Govea, the ELPIS Center. Well, first of all, give us a sense of what this organization is, the ELPIS Center.
Okay, so ELPIS is Greek for hope. We've been around since 2010.
For hope?
And we work with families. We're a family support center, so we work with single mothers and children in crisis to help reduce, the onset of adverse childhood events. So this could be a number of things from transitional housing support to food and physical support and psychological counseling and healing for various traumas. But we also do prevention work, which is where the article you referenced earlier would have come about from on, optimal health approaches for our young people when it comes to delaying the onset of sexual debut. We have multiple programs that we offer to teens as well as to parents and educators.
Okay, here's how it began. Youth across the globe, including the Caribbean, are impacted by choices they make regarding their sexual health. Teen pregnancy, viewed by some as the direct consequence of teen sexual activity, is merely the tip of the iceberg. The epidemic rates of sexually transmitted infections and the sequelae of the diseases which these infections cause is a major health concern, most especially in the 15 to 19-year-old age group. So, so this focuses on what you consider to be sort of premature, unprepared sexual activity of young people.
Right. So early sexual activity for teens, it's unquestionable. If you look at the CDC report, if we look at other health-based data, it's clear that there is a physical, emotional, and social health consequence to early sexual debut for children. For instance, the CDC meaning the Center for Disease Control, reported that almost half of newly diagnosed STI cases are in that age group. Teen sex, the research shows, leads to not just teen pregnancy, but poverty outcomes, low school goal attainment, meaning inability to complete school, poor academic performance, like school dropouts, right, for instance, and adolescent pregnancy, and of course the STIs, which I just referred to. Teens who are also engaging in sexual risky behavior are more likely to engage in other related risky behaviors, such as teenage drinking, smoking, and using other drugs. And then there's teen dating violence. There's a whole body of research and findings on that as well.
Teen dating violence.
Yes.
So you're saying that they should at least be careful about dating, or they shouldn't be dating at all?
Well, okay, so the article is about what is the best or optimal health approach for our children and young people, okay? And the optimal approach is to avoid or delay the onset of sexual activity.
All right.
And this is not it's not me imposing a morality on anyone. It's based on science. It's based on evidence. The CDC itself published it's on their website where they say they speak to this, right?
Yeah, and you're talking about the American CDC, the Centers for Disease Control.
The model that we spoke about in this article is sexual risk avoidance education.
All right.
And some of the core components of sexual risk avoidance education is teaching healthy relationships, a healthy sense of self-efficacy, self-regulation, what is a healthy relationship as opposed to what is an unhealthy one. These are conversations that we need to be having. Before we continue, Mr. Johnson, Dr. Coppola is getting a notification that the host will let you in soon. Can you please let her in?
Okay, well, let's...
Thank you very much.
We're working at. All right, thank you very much. Yes. So, all right, so it's a
primary prevention public health model.
Yes.
As opposed to risk reduction, which is a secondary and tertiary public health intervention approach.
All right, so let's
Dr. Coppola is on, so
right,
she
so
can...
Let's welcome Dr. Coppola. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. I apologize for the delay.
Well, that's okay. You're there now. All right, so you want to join the discussion at this point? You were following what Ms. Ali Gavaya was saying?
I just got in, so I don't know what the question was. I'm sorry.
All right. No,
so you can share the optimal youth health approach. That's where we're at. So we sort of outlined what the challenges to early sexual debut for young people. Yeah.
Surely. So an optimal health approach is used across the public health spectrum for all issues that we encounter across the globe from a health perspective, whether it be physical health, emotional health, intellectual, spiritual, the entire dynamic of the spectrum. And so an optimal health approach clearly dictates that what we need to do is to put all individuals and all communities on a trajectory towards the best health outcomes. And so we use a primary prevention model, which means we want to prevent the disease state from coming. So when we think about it from a teen health perspective and a sexual health perspective, that is then to delay the onset of sexual debut until such time as the individual can engage safely in sexual activity and handle all of the possible sequelae from that activity. We think primarily from a physical perspective. And so especially for young women, an optimal health approach says ideally we delay until the cervical mucosa is mature enough to prevent or minimize the spread of sexually transmitted infections.
Cervical
a lot of detail
mucosa.
That we can go into there, but
could you explain that? What is the cervical mucosa? That's a biological term, some part of the body, right?
Yes. So the cervix is part of the female reproductive system, and it does not mature until the age of 21. So prior to the age of 21, the female reproductive system is far more susceptible to contracting sexually transmitted infections. After the age of 21, physiologically, that part of the female anatomy matures to the point where they are less likely to contract a sexually transmitted infection.
So, you want to come back in there, Ms. Ali Gavaya? How do you get that into the heads of restless teenagers, or should you be talking to their parents?
In terms of from a curriculum standpoint, so the SRA model is the standard or the model that we are promoting that's best for our children. But in terms of curriculums, the one that we use at El Paciente is called Healthy Respect. It was authored by Dr. Coppola. And we have six, it's a suite of 6 levels of books, workbooks, curricula. So the content is introduced to children in a very age-appropriate, developmentally appropriate way, right? So built into this curriculum is character-based education, as values-based education, as well as we teach them refusal skills, boundary setting. We give them tools to be able to make the healthiest choices for themselves as they go through their teenage years.
No, all right.
I have numerous testimonials, but take my word for it, the young people that have been through the program with us have all said the same thing, that they appreciated, that the information was very helpful, that they've learned how to be the best version of themselves and to avoid doing harm to themselves or others or their future.
All right, it sounds interesting. What you call delaying tactics and avoidance skills. Dr. Kopol, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Mm-hmm. Certainly. So it is really important, as Rebecca said, to make sure that we're age appropriate and that we are reaching the youth where they are. So from an optimal health approach, for those youth who are not currently engaged in sexual activity, the goal is to teach them how to use skills to refuse and avoid and delay. And so we do that through role playing. We do that through having them think about their future. Future orientation is really important in helping young people to make healthy choices. And we do that through encouraging them to find a way to communicate assertively without communicating aggressively in order to convey their desires and wishes. From that optimal health approach, we also think about youth who are already engaged in sexual activity and how do we get them back on a trajectory towards optimal health by reaching them where they are. If they are currently in a situation where they're sexually active, the goal is to ask them first, do they want to return to optimal health? And then we give them the skills to learn how to say no moving forward until they are in a safe, mutually monogamous, long-term relationship where then in the future they would re-engage in sexual activity.
All right, so Rebecca, let me ask you, so what is the nature of the connection between your organization and say the Ministry of Education or other sort of like-minded agencies addressing this issue in Trinidad and Tobago?
Right. So I am not aware of any other agency that is teaching sexual risk avoidance education and evidence-based approach that we're using. There are agencies that teach risk reduction or what is called comprehensive and a comprehensive approach or comprehensive sexuality education. As I would have said earlier before Dr. Coppola came on, that is not a public health, the best public health approach to dealing with this issue. It's more of a secondary, tertiary approach as opposed to primary prevention approach. In terms of the Ministry of Education, we may have heard of the Health and Family Life Education framework. That has been around for some time, and there are 4 themes that are covered in that framework. The Ministry of Education in Trinidad and in the Caribbean, other islands in the Caribbean, have had HFLE in various proportions in schools. But there is currently an assertive push to introduce comprehensive sexuality education through the HFLE framework for children in schools. From our perspective and based on the best science and the best evidence that we have, that would not promote the optimal health and development of Caribbean children. So we, apart from providing programs for teens in Trinidad and Tobago, I would like to, call on our policymakers to ensure that there is a clear, in terms of teaching our children in schools about sexual health and sexual development, that there is a clear priority and sexual risk avoidance.
All right, let me just read what the piece says here about that. It says, parents are often informed that so-called comprehensive sex education programs offer the best approach to address this problem. In reality, these programs often add to the problem by promoting curricula that normalizes teen sex. And the CSE approach ignores a needed priority on risk avoidance and instead primarily focuses on merely reducing the physical risks of teen sex without adequately addressing the many other possible consequences of that activity. Can I get a response from both of you on that? You want to go first?
Yes, Dr. Kapula, you can weigh in on this.
So I think one of the things that we have to understand when we think about a risk reduction approach is that we are really engaging in the soft bigotry of low expectations, because what we are saying is that children cannot make the best choice for themselves. Again, that optimal health approach says that we delay sexual debut until later in life when they can deal with the sequela. The secondary and tertiary approach is to merely reduce the risk and then to treat the sequela. We deal with the teen pregnancy, we deal with the sexually transmitted infections, we deal with the emotional turmoil that can occur when debut happens too early. The other thing that we have to think about is the long-term sequela of those STIs. And we know that the primary reason for infertility later in life is contracting sexually transmitted infections at a young age that then go untreated, because many of these are asymptomatic and these young people do not even know that they have an STI. The other piece that we think about with a risk reduction approach is that we are not necessarily conveying a message that will put youth in the best place in their futures. We know that early sexual debut, we know that teen pregnancy in particular is associated with lifelong poverty. And so the success sequence also would tell us that the best approach is that young people complete their education and then have a stable job before getting married and having children.
All right, so Rebecca, how my sense is that this is an uphill challenge you all have here to get this sort of permeated properly and fully understood in the education systems in the Caribbean, in Trinidad and Tobago and elsewhere, correct?
I hope it won't be an uphill battle because the evidence is clear, and I believe that there is a common understanding and a common goal that we want what's best for our children in the region, that we want to develop the whole child, that we want that optimal or ideal Caribbean person. And there's no way to accomplish that if we are not going to promote or emphasize sexual risk avoidance. We haven't been able to talk about the adolescent brain, but I urge people to do their own research. The teen brain is not developed fully until 25 in females and about 27 in males. And over the last 10 years, more and more neuroscientists are saying that trusted adults need to guide our teenagers through these years to make help them make the healthiest choices for themselves. Even parental involvement, there has to be a strong this is a stakeholder approach. It's not just Elpis Center or Dr. Kapula or those of us who promote public health wanting the best for our children. Parents and caregivers and trusted adults who care about the well-being and futures of our children need to get involved and be the sex educators of their children, which is why we have workshops available for parents and educators at no cost to them that they can access some of this to help their children as well.
All right,
but just to circle back to your question, Mr. Johnson, I'm hoping that it's not an uphill battle, that it would be clear that this is necessary and will produce the best results.
All right,
so we are continuing to dialogue as best we can, both in the public space and with our policymakers.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to leave it there, but Dr. Kapula, can you take us out in 30 seconds?
So I would just say that the best thing to do is to think about how do we approach this from the outset. If we think about optimal health, we want to go back to the beginning, prevent the problems from being caused so that we are not dealing with the sequela afterwards. Think about saving the drowning person who's falling through a hole in the bridge. We don't keep pulling them out and pulling them to the riverside to save them. We go uphill, we fix the hole in the bridge so they stop falling through and they're not at risk of drowning.
All right, thanks to both of you, ladies. Thank you very much for agreeing to have this discussion.
Have a great day, Mr. Johnson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and you all too. Thank you very much. Well, let's go to the Newsday poll now quickly. The question is, with the rollback on restrictions from Monday, what precautions will you and your family be taking to protect yourself from COVID-19? Here are some responses. Wear my mask and keep my distance. Trini need to be careful still. Another response is, we still need to wear our masks, watch your distances, and wash your hands, and be safe always. Same as before, no change. COVID is still out there and still killing people. And the final response, kind of late, that question. Go Gulf City and Five Island Park. Those are the responses. I'll just show you what's on the front pages of these newspapers before we go. This is the Monday, April 4th edition of the Newsday Trinidad and Tobago. This is the top story there. And this is the back page. 5 people missing at sea, that boat coming from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And this is the Newsday Tobago. Front page, back page. 6 sea students quarantined as a result of what they're saying is that the COVID is still stoking the sister island in Tobago. We take a quick look around the region. We go to Guyana for the story from a news source, Guyana.
Former Education Minister Nicolette Henry's resignation as an APNU-AFC Member of Parliament took effect on Thursday, which means that there are now 2 vacant seats on the opposition side of the National Assembly following the resignation of Joseph Harman as Leader of the Opposition and also a parliamentarian. Former President David Granger is the representative of the list of candidates for the APNU-AFC coalition, and the responsibility lies with him to inform the Ghana Elections Commission, GECOM, of the resignations and who the replacements will be. The newsroom understands that he's yet to do so. The newsroom has also confirmed that the Speaker of the National Assembly, Manzoor Nadir, has already written to Granger, informing him of the need to fill the vacancies. Reports indicate that the former president is out of the jurisdiction, and so it is not clear when the vacancies will be filled, further stymieing the imminent selection of leader of the People's National Congress Reform, Aubrey Norton, as the new opposition leader. It will have to be Granger who puts Norton's name as one of the new replacement parliamentarians, after which he, Norton, will be selected as the leader of the opposition by the current opposition parliamentarians. The APNU-AFC remains in turmoil since the attempts to rig the March 2020 national elections and has seen major shakeups in the internal politics of the PNCR.
All right, and that will do it for us this morning. That's our program. We thank you for watching. We tell you, as always, you can keep in touch with us here at WESNCC on all our social media platforms, and you can send your emails to wesncc.com. Just want to say, I'm Andy Johnson. Thanks for watching. Of course, at the top of the hour, we have news again, followed by today's edition of Talking Points. The twins, Shah and Small, will take you through that. But for now, thanks for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.